Wrapping up on Sports Bet Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Teddy, we do this with every sport. Why not the NBA? NBA Betting 101, streaks and spots. Let's get into it. Take it away. Let's start with spots, and you have a lot of back-to-backs in the NBA.
Sure. And when we talk about NBA handicapping 101, this right here is a segment for those who are just starting to get into NBA, the type of things that the markets react to and that I personally react to. This is not a broad overview on how everybody beats the NBA. This is what I look at in the NBA. And, it tends to work fairly well over the course of time. So let's start with spots. Now, what are bad spots in the NBA? Teams that you don't want. We talked about earlier in the show where the Kings were in a really tough spot, playing 5 and 7, second set of back-to-backs on the road. In general, back-to-backs with travel, especially as the season progresses, that's a bad spot. 3 games in 4 nights. That's a bad spot with tired legs. 4 games in 5 nights, a bad spot. Teams satisfied off a win prior to a back-to-back situation. Teams off overtime games. These are all spots that the markets don't always adjust for enough. Scheduling matters a lot in the NBA, but the power ratings are going to keep chunking out the same numbers on these teams. And when you look at the spots and the situations, you can often find edges.
How about streaks here with totals and under the radar guys who get hurt, role players?
Streaks, in my mind, it's the key factor for betting and beating the NBA. Especially with a coaching change. You talk about those totals, you'll see a team change their philosophy, and you're going to have a half season's worth of data. Say they're an up-tempo team, and the new coach comes in and says defense. The markets can take some time to adjust in that regard. And the under the radar, the role player injuries or return to health, they're so key. Remember Toronto last year when Damari Carroll got hurt? And Damari Carroll, no big deal. He's not one of their stars. He's not Lowry. He's not DeRozan. And Carroll, of course, was their defensive stopper. They couldn't get stops. All of a sudden, the Raptor games are flying over the total, and they're not covering numbers. So the under the radar role player injuries are key. The markets are going to adjust power ratings very slowly after the first month or so. Undervalued commodities can remain undervalued for weeks on end, and even great teams. Look at the Warriors coming out of the gate last year. They went 13-5 ATS their first 18 games, just crushing teams, covering double-digit spreads consistently, and the markets, they're ratcheting up a little. You can take advantage when a team's playing up here, and the markets are making adjustments down here. In the NFL, if you miss a team in a spot, it's gone. You can't chase. In the NBA, when a team isn't being valued correctly, you can miss one and still cash in on the general trend, and ride some of these streaks.
Okay, so you say the markets are slow to adjust, but here you adjust your power ratings every single night?
Every night. And I'm not talking about massive adjustments. I'm talking about half point. But every single night I go through my NBA power ratings, I go through the box scores, and that's how you can take advantage of these shorter term streaks. When a team is stepping up or they're playing poorly. The markets don't make any short-term adjustments. Once you get about December 1st, these are the power ratings, and they'll slowly move, glacially move. But if you're making, hey, this team's playing better. Hey, this team's on a nice little run right now. You can ride these streaks for a week or two and make money betting on or against squads that aren't playing with their current form at the same level they played throughout the course of the entire season.
Okay. And I have to know my coaches. How important is that? What does that mean?
Well, I want to talk about star players first, because the markets always overreact to star players, especially one-game star player injuries. But sometimes a guy gets hurt. Remember last year, Blake Griffin got hurt, and the Clips are devalued. The Clips aren't going anywhere. They won a huge spread run in his absence initially. In particular, though, they over-adjust to those one-game absences, and when you have a guy getting hurt, everybody else steps up. Oh, guess what? We don't have LeBron today, the rest of the Cavs are going to step up and play. We don't have Curry today, the rest of the Warriors are going to step up and play. You can make a living just betting against the market moves after NBA injury info is announced. They always overreact. At least it tends to be that way.
Okay, now to the coaches. How important? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, with coaches, it only comes with experience. But the more you watch NBA, the more you read NBA, the more you get to know your coaches and how they're going to perform in different roles. Popovich, a master at coaxing strong efforts out of his team when star players are sitting. Mike D'Antoni doesn't know a thing about getting a stop during crunch time. Never has. Tom Thibodeau's teams are really tough off a loss. etc., etc., etc. And especially when it comes to derivative betting, first quarter, first half. If you know your coaches, you can clean up with those derivatives because the markets, they're just an auto road. Here's what the game spread is, therefore here's what the half spread is, therefore here's what the quarter spread is. And knowing your coaches and knowing their MOs with first quarters and first halves, those derivative markets, man, they can be legitimate money makers, but that's only going to come with experience.
All right, we saved the best for last. What's your number one strategy?
Well, my number one strategy in the NBA is to identify what I consider to be mispriced teams. And you bet on or against those teams for an extended stretch. I usually use five game increments, but sometimes I'll go 5 games and 5 more and 5 more and 5 more. If the value is still there, the bet on or bet against can continue indefinitely. Remember Atlanta 2 years ago, that 20-1 point spread run from about mid-December through the end of January where, oh, the Hawks aren't that good. Yes, they are. And the markets are adjusting up incremental. I'm like, no, Atlanta's right here, right now. That was a real profit maker. And their only TV game during that span was a 30-point loss. The smaller market, under the radar teams without superstars, those are the ones who hold their value. Look back at last year. Was Orlando anything special last year? They were not. Okay. They had 2 separate 7-0 ATS runs in the first 6 weeks of the season. They went 21-8 ATS through Christmas. Why? They were a small market, under the radar team that no one was paying any attention to, and they were playing a little bit better than the markets thought they were. That was it. You find teams like Atlanta 2 years ago or Orlando last year, you ride them indefinitely until they start to lose ATS. Those are teams you can make real money with. That's my number one strategy. Find the mispriced teams and ride them, whether you're betting on them or betting against them.
Hey guys, for the full video, go to sbrpicks.com.
Go to sbrodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.